Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel, it's Kevin. Today I'm gonna print Ember from Genshin Impact. I'm on CG Trader, this one is from PCY. It's 10 bucks, so it's not too bad. We're gonna try to make it as tall as I can. It's on several parts, so let's go. Okay, so here in Litchi I have all my parts, everything is supported already. What I've done before, I had a couple more parts. So for example here the top part of the bust, like the body and the bottom, there was a cut around the waist. I've just moved them together, save as an STL, and then I import the file back. The legs were fine, they were in one piece, same for the arms and everything else. It's a bit annoying for later on to assemble the whole model, but the keyhole were pretty well done, so that was a plus. And here for example on the head and the hair, I think there were like 7 parts, maybe like 6 parts together with the bandana, the hair, the goggles and stuff. So I've just assembled the whole thing, save as STL, import back, and now I can it's a bit bigger to print, but it was still good enough in the photon. I was able to orient the model in a good way, and then I support and print. Okay, so after a lot of printing and a lot of cleaning, what I got here, the main part, I've put my leg and the torso together. I attached the 2 arms as well. I'm just gonna put the head at the end. So here it's the last part that I got. The keyhole on the head is pretty nice, the seam is really good. The arm were pretty nice as well. On this model, all the keyholes are pretty good because it's like a bolt going into a socket, and the seam is pretty cool after. So I've put some milliputs still in some parts, even if the gap was super tiny, just for good measure. The only problem that I have is on the legs. I had support coming down on those keyholes, so obviously later on you have a lot of bumpy surface and nothing fit really nicely. So I have some milliput, it's not the best, but it's still good. And I still have a lot of patches, so there is like 2 patches and the fire emblem coming at the back. I'm gonna keep them separate and put them at the end. I have the base still printing, so everything is prime, it's ready to go, so let's paint. Okay, so as always I start with the skin. I like to have my skin done and then try not to touch on it later on. And I can go a bit like smoothly on the dry brush over and stuff, so that's what I like. Most of the model is really white. I've applied a black primer and then a heavy zenithal highlight. The point was to make sure all my bright color, like the skin and mostly the white legging and the white torso, was just easy to paint over. I didn't want to do anything special, but I didn't want to have to coat 100 times to make sure my white was decent. So the good primer really helped me. And I'm just gonna mostly dry brush on those really tall model. It's the quickest way, so to speak. You don't want to glaze on something like this. You can go with some layering, but if you just want a cool figure and with a decent amount of time, I think that's the best way to go. So here I'm just applying a couple of my base coat, and then in between I'm dry brushing. It's still gonna take me a lot of time. When I dry brush, I try to go with different colors sometimes, so here I'm just going brighter with the first dry brushing. It's just a lighter brown, but then later on I can add a bit of color, a different brown, and try to add a bit more tint and a different color to it. So after going some step by step, I've done the skin first, then I had this kind of chocolate brown, and then later I have another type of brown here. So I'm going color by color. Don't forget the small patches on the side. And here I'm doing some edge highlighting. I went really slowly with the dry brush. Sometimes I'm just going 2 or 3 coats of different highlights, but if it's not punchy enough, I went back with the edge highlighting and trying to bring a bit more depth to the model. Here I'm trying to be careful when I dry brush, I'm really close to the skin, but you don't want to put red on something you've done already. And the red was a bit annoying. I started with a dark red and trying to bring life to it, make it really bright, was a bit harder. I had to dry brush quite a lot over to make it a bit brighter, and then again I'm edge highlighting, and it's really subtle. I'm not going crazy. I just want to make sure there is some interest on the on the detail, but I'm not going like with some crazy contrast or highlight. Here I'm going back again, adding a couple more highlights. It's good to take your time. Sometimes you just take a break, because when you're really close to your model, you're like, okay, that sounds like it's good enough. But then when you come back after a small break, you're like, the contrast is not that high, so sometimes you go back at it. Here I'm stapling the swing over all the leather part on the torso. And here the white, for example, I'm gonna go a couple of more coat on it, but it was really easy to make everything white. A small mistake that I've done, all the golden part were with different color. Some of them were like covered with some dark brown, some of them were covered with the white primer. And I've decided to just coat everything in gray, just to harmonize all my gold base coat. But in the end you can see the gray under, and it's not that good. So I would recommend maybe use black instead, or all white. I'm not sure exactly, but gray is not a good base coat for gold for sure. Here I'm just going with a bit more detail on the goggles. I started glazing slowly, but I was like, no, I'm not making progress. I'm just gonna layer and try to blend after. Nothing super fancy and super amazing. I'm doing the same on the eyes. The color was roughly the same on the artwork, so that's what I went for. Here the emblem was a bit of a pain. I've tried to do my best. Even just having a straight line was... I've messed up a couple of times, but then I've tried to correct my line later on with the red. And then I had to make the small logo, like the fire logo. It's not terrible, it's not amazing, it's decent. I've just tried to copy the flame the best that I could. And in the end, I mean, you get it, you know what it is, so it worked, I guess. And that's it for Member from Genshin Impact. This model was pretty cool to paint. It's really detailed, it's really nice. The only downside is like when you paint those tall models, you just end up spending a lot of time like coating the stuff. Even just when I coat and dry brush, it seems really simple and quick, but the amount of surface you have really make you spend a lot of time. So it's always the downside of those tall models. I wanted to spend more time trying to refine really tiny detail, make sure everything was perfect, but at some point you need to cut it down. So that's it for this one. If you enjoyed the video, if you like the model, tell me what do you think in the comment, and see you next time. Bye.